Let's kick things off with a question that, sounds like it's straight out of science fiction, but it's actually one of biology's biggest, most compelling mysteries. Is extinction actually forever?
Now, the simple, kind of brutal answer is yeah, usually it is. The fossil record tells a pretty tough story. I mean, think about it. Of all the billions of species that have ever called Earth home, over 99% of them are just gone, wiped out by everything from ice ages to giant asteroids. But every now and then, things get a little weird. Sometimes a creature we were sure was lost to time, just a ghost in the fossil record, suddenly reappears. It's like it just completely ignores the fundamental rules of life and death. And that's exactly what we're diving into. This is called the Lazarus Effect, this incredible phenomenon where a species we all thought was extinct is suddenly rediscovered, alive and kicking. So the big question is, are some of these extinct species still out there with us? Let's find out. Okay, so to even wrap our heads around how a species could be rediscovered, we first have to talk about something really cool. Our planet is packed with these ancient survivors, creatures that are basically living echoes from a super distant past. You've probably heard the term living fossils. And here's the key thing to get. A living fossil isn't something that was brought back to life. Nope. It's more like an organism that found a perfect design millions of years ago and basically said, yep, this works, no need to change. It's the last one standing from a huge ancient family, like a living blueprint from a world that's long gone. For example, take the horseshoe crab. This thing looks like it's from another planet, right? But it's totally from Earth. And this guy has been crawling on the ocean floor, looking pretty much just like this for, get this, 450 million years. That's way before the dinosaurs. It's almost impossible to even imagine that much time. Or how about the tuatara from New Zealand? If you just glance at it, you'd think, oh, it's a lizard. But you'd be wrong. It's actually part of a whole separate group of reptiles that were a huge deal back when the dinosaurs roamed, like 200 million years ago. All of its relatives, gone. It's the last one left, a total holdout from another era. So these living fossils, they prove that ancient life can definitely hang on. But what happens when it's not just an ancient type of animal, but a very specific species that we were 100% sure was gone forever? Well, that leads us to the most famous case of all. We're talking about a fish that was completely out of time. The story of the Coelacanth, honestly, it's one of the best stories in all of science. For years and years, we only knew it from fossils, and the most recent fossil we had was from 66 million years ago, right around when the dinosaurs checked out. It was, the dictionary definition of extinct. And then, 1938, a fishing boat off South Africa pulls one up, and it's alive. Just incredible. Today, we actually know there are 2 different species just chilling in deep ocean caves. And you have to imagine the pure shock of that moment. A local museum curator, a woman named Marjorie Courtney Latimer, she's the hero of this story. She's the one who saw it and stopped it from being tossed out. She wrote, "I picked away at a layer of slime to reveal the most beautiful fish I had ever seen." Can you imagine? She had absolutely no clue she was staring at something that science had written off as dead for 66 million years. And this fish isn't just a survivor. It's a total biological treasure trove. It's got stuff you won't find in any other living animal. For example, it has a hinge in its skull that lets it open its mouth super wide. They can live for 100 years, and the females are pregnant for about 5 years. That's the longest of any animal with a backbone. And look at those fins. They look like lobes, and they move back and forth, almost like an animal walking. It is literally a time capsule from the past. So, finding the Coelacanth again was such a huge deal, it actually gave its name to this whole idea. This idea of a species that just seems to come back from the dead. And we call it the Lazarus Effect. The official term is a Lazarus taxon, and taxon is just a fancy science word for any group of living things. So a Lazarus taxon is any species that just disappears from the fossil record. Poof, gone for millions of years, we all think it's extinct, and then bam, against all odds, it turns up again, alive. And hey, the Coelacanth is not a one-off. This kind of thing happens way more than you'd probably guess. You've got the Lord Howe Island stick insect, this huge bug everyone thought was eaten by rats, but a tiny group was found on this single volcanic rock in the middle of the ocean. Or the Chacoan peccary, an animal we only knew from fossils that were 11 million years old until we found a living one in 1971. The list just keeps going. This isn't some random fluke, it's a real pattern. Okay, so this brings up a pretty obvious question, right? How in the world do we just lose track of an entire species? I mean, for millions of years sometimes. Where could they possibly be hiding? Well, it usually boils down to a few things. First, some of these animals live in places that are just crazy remote, almost impossible for us to get to. Second, they can be really good at not being seen. They're nocturnal, or they live deep underground, or like our friend the Coelacanth, they're in deep sea caves. But there's a third reason, and this one's really important. Sometimes a species is only lost to Western science. Local communities, indigenous peoples, they might have known it was there the whole time. It's a great reminder that discovery can mean different things to different. But when you talk about hiding places, there is one that is bigger and more mysterious than all the others combined. I'm talking about the single biggest reason we might get it wrong when we declare a species extinct, and that's the ocean. It's easy to think we've got our planet all mapped out, but just look at this chart. Even with all our amazing technology, our satellites, and our sonar, nearly 3/4 of the ocean floor is still basically a blur. It's not mapped in any detail. I'm not kidding when I say this. We have better, more detailed maps of the surface of Mars than we do of the bottom of our own oceans. Think about that. Okay, but mapping from a boat is one thing. What about actually seeing it with our own eyes or with a camera on a submarine? Take a guess. What percentage of the deep ocean floor has a human actually looked at? The answer is, it's just staggering. It's less than 0.001%, less than 1,000th of a single percent. Just let that number sink in for a second. It's basically nothing. The biggest habitat on our entire planet is, for all intents and purposes, a complete and total mystery that we've never even seen. So you gotta wonder, what else is down there? Scientists have a pretty good estimate. They think about 2/3 of all the species in the ocean haven't even been discovered yet. We're talking hundreds of thousands of unknown species. We are barely, and I mean barely, scratching the surface. It is totally possible that some of the animals we've written off as extinct are just down there, living their lives in the dark. And all of this, it brings us to one last, really critical idea. This is the thing that ties this whole mystery together. It's really about the huge difference between what we know for sure and what we just assume to be true. The perfect example of this is the thylacine, the Tasmanian tiger, officially extinct. The last known one died in a zoo back in 1936. But ever since then, there have been thousands of sightings, grainy photos, strange footprints, endless searches by people who refuse to give up. So is it still out there? The scientific consensus is probably not, but that tiny, tiny possibility, it still haunts us, doesn't it? It's the ultimate example of that blurry line between being gone for good and that nagging question, what if? And it all comes down to a really powerful idea in science, a famous saying, absence of evidence is not evidence of absence. Just because we haven't found it doesn't mean it's not there. The Coelacanth proved that in the most dramatic way possible. Our vast unexplored planet reminds us of it every single day. And that leaves us with one final fascinating thought to chew on. What other ghosts are still out there, just waiting for us to find them?